What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and it's time for more Candlekeep Mysteries. Sorry this one took so long to get out compared to the first one, but we're going to be talking about the new monsters in this one. So there are several new monsters as well as NPCs contained in Candlekeep Mysteries. Originally, I was thinking I was going to break them out and do monsters in one and NPCs in another, and I think I'll just lump them all together, but this may be a slightly longer video, so keep that in mind. Something else to consider, there will be spoilers, right, potentially, if we're talking about the monsters contained in this book. If some of them are iconic NPCs, well, that will be spoiled for you. A third thing, I'll address it here up front, any of the new monsters contained in Candlekeep Mysteries do not have alignments associated with them. Now, some of these things are constructs, so maybe there isn't even really an alignment for them because they're just an animated creature of some kind. But the NPCs as well do not have alignments, where it would normally say like small construct, comma, neutral, or unaligned. There are no alignments. That's probably going to bug a lot of people. Doesn't bother me. Alignment in 5th edition is kind of a throwaway thing. It's basically completely useless in my mind. Maybe I'll make a separate video on this. But the only thing that requires attunement-related things are, for, in my opinion, more often than not, stuff that are legacy from older, like things that like magic items that are like, to do this, you need to be X alignment. And I think that was honestly just holdover and legacy from older editions. Alignment is kind of throwaway, but that's not what this is about. This is about new monsters. Also, there is a giveaway going on to win this Candlekeep Mysteries here and 2 copies of the Collector's Edition. It's free to enter. There's links in the description. It runs for another about 2 weeks. So what I've done is gone over here to D&D Beyond, and I have sorted the monsters here, as you can see, by source Candlekeep Mysteries. Now, this is obviously going to give us every monster in Candlekeep Mysteries, so we're going to skip over the ones that were not introduced in this book, and we can see right here what book they're from. So the first one up is the animated Broom, and I honestly thought this existed in Curse of Strahd, but I guess not. Basically, for lack of a better term, this is an animated or like a flying, maybe it's a flying broom, but basically like a flying sword, except it's a broom instead. Not too much to talk about here. It does have a decent amount of hit points, 17 and 15 AC for a challenge rating 1/4 creature, and ridiculous amount of immunities, but I guess that is chalked up to the fact that it's a broom. It has blind sight out to 120 feet. That's some of the largest distance of blind sight we've ever seen, and again, it's a broom. It has false object, which is mimic-like things we see where if they don't move, you can't tell that they're not what they seem to be. It also has flyby, which is a crazy ability, right? Where you can go in and make opportunity attacks without provoking attacks, or you don't provoke attacks of opportunity when you leave a creature space. And it can make 2 attacks. It has multi-attack for a d4 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. This might be on that list of super powerful, like low-level creatures, because this is challenge rating 1/4 with flyby resistances, can't be hidden from invisibility, or invisibility won't work on it, and it has 2 attacks. All right, next up in the construct section here, we have the animated chain library right there. And this is 3 shelves are filled with books and iron covers, and they basically all animate an attack. I think this one actually has art. Yeah, here's the chained library, right? Imagine like the restricted section, Harry Potter style. These are challenge rating 1, similar to, they're large size too, similar to the Broom. Same resistances, although only blind sight out to 30 feet, and still have false object and 2 attacks. Chained book is the attack, does a d8 plus 2 bludgeoning, and also grapples. We have Arrant Quill, who is an NPC from one of the adventures here. He's a charismatic bard. As such, is very bardic in his abilities, although he does have some unique things that we should talk about, right? Nothing too crazy. On the left side here, multi-attack, 2 daggers, and uses Supreme Mockery. We'll get to that in a second. Has spellcasting for a bard, or has Quill's Fable, which recharges on a 6. He utters a short fable targeting up to 5 creatures within 30 feet. If they hear it, they need to make a wisdom saving throw or take 8d8 psychic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a success. So this is almost like a Supreme Fireball, but it's mental based, and it's only it's each target that can hear him. So it's not it doesn't tell friend from foe. Spellcasting, we have a couple cantrips, 3 times per day, detect magic, dispel magic, fairy fire, hold monster, and then mind blank and teleport once a day. But then we also have Supreme Mockery. He hurls a string of insults at a creature within 60 feet. If they can hear him, they don't need to understand him, they need to make a wisdom saving throw or take 12d10 psychic damage and have disadvantage on the next attack roll they make before the end of their next turn. So this is Vicious Mockery on ridiculous amounts of steroids. This is insane, right? Vicious Mockery is a d4 and at max 4d4 when you hit level 17. This does 12d10 psychic damage, still provides disadvantage on attack roll, and he can make 2 dagger attacks and do this every single turn. This will destroy a party, even if they are higher level. That amount of consistent damage and psychic damage, which is not heavily resisted, that's nuts. All right, we have Bak Mei is one of the, I know this one well because I know the characters from the Inner Alchemy adventure, because that's the one that has the cool magic item, the soul catching gloves. So as these are mostly monk-based characters, so you'll see a lot of that here, right? Proficiency in every saving throw. We've got some resistances here in Poison and Thunder and a couple condition immunities. Legendary resistance. He carries a Staff of Striking, has unarmored defense. He can make 2 Thunder Strikes and 1 Staff of Striking. The Thunder Strike does 2d10 thunder damage, and they must make a con save or be deafened and stunned. So this is like a crazy high-level, powerful open hand monk. And then we have a Staff of Striking, which he can use the charges to bump up. He can also heal himself once after a long rest, 2d8 plus 4 hit points, and all levels of exhaustion end on him. So it's slightly better than an open hand monk's healing. We have Nimble Escape, which is disengage or hide as a bonus action. He can deflect missiles as a reaction. And then on top of all of that, does have legendary actions. 3 legendary actions. He can move up to 20 feet that doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, or use 2 actions to use Thunderstrike. And as you can kind of tell from the image, Bak Mei is kind of one of the higher level monks in that adventure. All right, we have a Canopic Golem, which has some pretty cool art. This is obviously from, oh man, the adventure is escaping me, but the Canopic one, the kind of pyramid-based one. So this is, again, a higher level golem, right? Challenge rating 13. Immunity to poison and several conditions. Limited spell immunity, similar to like a Rakshasa, although this is spells of 7th level or lower. Succeeds on saving throws against spells of 7th level or lower, and the attack rolls of such spells always miss. Now, it also is interesting that it doesn't say if it wants to, because I'm pretty sure like Rakshasas and those say like if they want, unless they want to be affected. This one just flat out says saving throws of 7th level, spell level 7 or lower just don't work, and attack rolls just miss. It has unusual nature for a golem here, right? It doesn't need air, food, drink, or sleep. Makes 2 slam attacks, which do 4d10 plus 5 force damage each, or can hurl a crystal dart out to 120 feet for 2d8 plus 5 force damage. And it also has a reaction of spell deflection, which is in response to an attack missing it, it causes the spell to hit another creature within 120 feet of it. Remind you that that combos with limited spell immunity, where it doesn't say it is not affected by spells of 7th level or lower with attack rolls. It says they always miss. And then spell deflection is if it misses, then it can redirect it. So keep that in mind. All right, and we have a Cloud Giant Ghost. I think we've had some other ghosts or skeletons in other adventures. So we have basically, we're going to take a Cloud Giant base and apply kind of the ghost abilities to it here. Although it doesn't have as many resistances and immunities as a typical ghost does, and only has a 40-foot fly speed. Ethereal Sight, Incorporeal Movement, these are all standard ghost things. Does have a regen of 10 hit points a turn. A Spectral Weapon that does 3d8 plus 8 force damage with a 10-foot reach. It can go into the ethereal plane. Has a couple of spells, Fog Cloud, 3 times a day Telekinesis, and once a day Control Weather. And then Wind Howl, recharges on a 6. It engulfs up to 3 creatures within 60 feet of it. They're pulled 20 feet towards it and must make a Constitution saving throw or take 3d10 cold damage, or half on a success. All right, next up is the Constructed Commoner. This is a commoner, right? So that means it's challenge rating 0, but instead of being a traditional commoner like a human, this is one that is a construct, and as such has construct-based immunities, like poison, exhaustion, the poison condition, and then doesn't need food, drink, or sleep, and it just goes lifeless, kind of inert at 0 hit points. All right, this is another one of my favorites. This is the corrupted avatar of, I think it's Lurue, L-U-R-U-E, I think is how it's pronounced, one of the deities. And as you can see, it's basically an evil black unicorn, which is awesome. Also significantly I was thinking of a celestial charger, significantly stronger than a standard unicorn and being a challenge rating 8. Has a couple of different immunities here. Fly speed, 50 feet. It can make 2 attacks, a hoof attack, 1 hoof attack, 1 horn attack. Its hooves do 8d6 plus 4 necrotic damage. Woof. And its horn does the same, but if the target is a humanoid, they must make a wisdom saving throw or be transformed into a wolf under its control. This transformation lasts for an hour until it drops to 0 hit points or dies. The target's game statistics are replaced by the wolf stats, but it retains its hit points. The target is limited in actions it can perform, while in wolf form it can't speak, cast spells, or take any other action that requires hands or speech. The target's gear melds into its new form, and it can't activate, use, wield, or otherwise benefit from any kind of equipment. I really like that one a lot, actually. All right, next up is the Dragon Tortoise. I'm not going to cover this too much. I did this in my top 10 dragon video that came out on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's basically a dragon turtle, but rather than being a sea turtle based, this is a tortoise, so it's land based. It basically loses the amphibious ability and still has a 20-foot walk speed against Terran language proficiency, and it's not actually steam breath, it's sand breath, like abrasive sand, so it does slashing damage as opposed to fire damage like steam breath normally would. All right, on to the second page. We have Faerl. This is, I believe, okay, he's a neutral evil wood elf. Also, look at this. So I was wrong. People were saying that there were no alignments. That's what everybody kept telling me. But if you look right here, it says it in his description that he's neutral evil, and it might be put up here just because this is D&D Beyond. But it says it right there in his description. What page is he on? Let's go look this up real quick, just so I can put this to bed. Page 104. Okay, 104. Okay, he doesn't actually have a stat block, which is another fun thing. I don't know how you would find this. It says that he is a noble, but so he doesn't have a stat block, but it says right there in his description that he's a neutral evil wood elf. So that explains that. I'm just taking a look just to see if any of these other, none of the other stat blocks have alignments, but this particular one does, and it explains it right there. So he is basically a noble as per the noble stat block, but has Fey ancestry as he is an elf, and then actually should have proficiency in perception because he's an elf, but then again is neutral evil, so not too much to talk about there. Okay, moving on, we have a fungal servant, which is interesting. This is an undead. This is challenge rating 15, this fungal servant. It also states here that it's lawful evil. So I don't know. Again, we could go and look. We'll just do one more double check. Page 217. See if this one says that it's, let's check the description because of this. I don't believe that it has that in a stat block. Yeah. It doesn't actually, page 217. Oh, you know what it is? That's why. So this is how you're going to figure this out, folks. This one actually uses, it is a Mummy Lord. It uses the Mummy Lord's stats, is what it says. It's just called a fungal servant. So it's actually not a new creature at all. One fungal servant used the Mummy Lord's stat block, but omit its lair actions and regional effects and replace its sand-based effects with spore-based ones that are functionally identical. So there you go. So that one basically, instead of Whirlwind of Spores, it would have been Whirlwind of Sand. So actually not a new creature at all. Okay, that's good. We can move on then from that one. All right, we have the Grippli Warrior. This is pretty cool. So Grippli are frog people. And I think they're more like tree frog people. If you can tell, they have toe pads. And I know they were popular and they were from, I thought they were from Greyhawk. Maybe they were from Faerun. But, you know, we have Bullywug are sort of bullfrog and Grung are sort of dart frog. So I think these are maybe supposed to kind of fill that middle gap of frogs. But you can see right here, they have things we'd expect frogs to have, right? They can hold their breath. They have a standing leap ability, similar to what the Grung have. They have a tongue attack, which I don't believe Bullywugs or Grung have. So this is, it's only got a 5-foot reach though, which I thought was interesting. But they're grappled, and if they're grappled by the tongue, they are also restrained. They wield a trident, and And if they make the attack with 2 hands, they add a D4 if they had advantage on the attack roll, and then they also have a short bow, and the art is awesome. I love the art a lot. Actually, like the little spider on the spider web on the bow there. Very cool. I'm a big fan. I would like to see them as a playable race. Okay, the Hag of the Fetid Gaze. Is this a unique? So this is probably not a unique stat block. We'll do some quick cross-referencing here. Page 76. This is from the sort of the Spa Day adventure. So they're all green hags. Yeah, looks like they don't really have any. They just have different appearances and different. If you scroll down, you'll see they have some of them have different like bonds and flaws. But it looks like for the purposes of this, they are basically just, they have the shared spellcasting ability here. While they're within 30 feet, they can cast the following spells from the wizard spell list. But it doesn't actually even say that. Because they, oh, you know what? That's their coven spells. I see. So yeah, they are basically just green hags, but they have a section at the bottom in like a box text that is what their coven spells are, which would be the only other thing that's different about them. Okay. Moving on. We have the Immortal Lotus Monk. Again, this is from the Inner Alchemy adventure. These are sort of the foot grunts here, if you will. Challenge rating 5. Unarmored defense, have 2 attacks, and their force strike does a d8 plus 3 force damage. And if it's a creature, they must make a dex save or be knocked prone, or they can throw darts. Jade Tigress, again, sort of, I think, the villain of and you can see right here, and I don't know if they say in her stat block that she is, it says up here that she's lawful evil. I don't see it in her stat block. But she is a similar kind of to what we saw with Bak Mei, where we have, again, similar abilities: unarmored defense, immunity to poison, a force strike ability. Hers does 2d8s, poison darts that deal, dart damage, but also poison damage. A self heal that's slightly less powerful, nimble escape, and then also deflect missiles. We have Cthulhu, which is a tabaxi, who again does not look too crazy different. I'm going to assume if we click on her and go to page 64, we're going to find out that she's once again an NPC of some kind. She is a druid, except she speaks Common and Druidic and has dark vision. When she moves on her turn, she can double her speed until the end of her turn. I didn't even see that in her stat block, the feline agility. Oh, there it is. Yep, it's there. And then as an action, she can make a melee weapon attack with her claws. So those are the differences. So a lot of this you can reference if you have it on D&D Beyond. You can reference in the book, or in the book there'll be a little bit like the stat, like where the character's name is the NPC's name. It'll give you a little blurb about what's different about them. All right, that was Cthulhu. Kiddywidgets, these are new. So a Skitterwidget that gives birth to a Kiddywidget can't procreate for 3d6 days. They're basically small, cute little construct creatures, these little guys. I like them a lot. They have similar construct immunities that we've seen so far: lightning, poison, a bunch of immunities to conditions. They don't need to eat, drink, or sleep, or breathe, and they can make a bite and a claw attack. Their bite does piercing damage. They are small size though, but if it's a creature, they're grappled, and their tail does piercing plus lightning damage. We have the Lichen Lich, which I believe is an entirely new stat block, which is probably one of my favorites in this book, because it is essentially a druid lich, which is something we've seen. I think we've seen a cleric lich and a wizard lich in official things. I think one was either in Eberron or like Volos or Mordenkainen's, but this is very much a druid lich, right? So lichen as in the plant, or like the sort of, I guess it is a plant. But yeah, we've got cold resistance, necrotic resistance, kind of standard lich stuff, legendary resistance, rejuvenation via phylactery, like a lich should have, rather than whatever it is, necrotic touch. We have a poisonous touch, reach of 10 feet, does poison damage, must make a con save or be poisoned for a minute. We have Wither, which might be a standard Lich ability, 46 necrotic damage. We can cast Firestorm once a day as one of our kind of spells from being a druid. We have Druidcraft at will, Detect Magic, Fog Cloud, Pass Without Trace 3 times a day. And then once a day we have Anti-Life, Shell, Dispel Magic, Speak with Plants, and Transport via Plants. So they also have the nasty ability to just bamf out through trees if they're nearby one. And then their legendary actions are Make an Attack, Poison Prick, which is pick a creature within 30 feet. They must make a con save or fall unconscious until the poison condition ends on them. Or Sap Life for 2. They must make a con save or take 2d10 necrotic damage, and the Lich regains hit points equal to that amount. Again, this is probably one of my favorites in this entire book. We have a Lightning Golem. So again, another new Golem type. Challenge rating 5, so a little bit lower level. You can get a lot more use out of this. Immunity to lightning, poison, and non-adamantine bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, as well as standard Golem immunities. It also has the Berserk ability, which I think is similar to like a Flesh Golem. Whenever it starts its turn with 40 hit points or less, roll a d6. On a 6, it goes Berserk. On each of its turns, while Berserk, the Golem attacks the nearest creature to it. If no creature is near enough to move to an attack, it attacks an object, with preference for an object that's smaller than itself. Once it goes Berserk, it continues to do so until it is destroyed or regains all of its hit points. The creator, if within 60 feet, can try and calm it by making a persuasion check. If it succeeds, it stops going Berserk. If it takes damage while at 40 hit points or fewer, it might go Berserk again. Mutable form, standard Golem stuff. Lightning absorption, when it's subjected to lightning damage, it takes no damage and is then healed. Magic resistance for advantage on saving throws against spells, and then its attacks are magic, and it does 2 slam attacks that do 2d8 plus 4 lightning. We have a Master Sage, which is just a nice little NPC thing here. We have this this kind of, I think maybe a gnome or a dwarf sage here. So they're basically just like a wizard, essentially, right? Shocking Grasp is a cantrip, Fireball, and you can see here they have basically high-level proficiencies in all of the intelligence-based skills. And then we have a standard set of kind of magic here. At will, light, mage hand, mending, prestidigitation, a handful of 3 times a day spells, and then some higher level once a day spells, all the way up to 6th level with true seeing. And then they list their reaction here as shield, such a spell they have access to. Then my absolute favorite monster in the entirety of Candlekeep Mysteries is Miirym, the undead ghost dragon. There is a ton of awesome lore, which I won't read through here, but basically, she was a silver dragon that was trying to steal the books of Candlekeep for herself, for her horde, and a powerful wizard who has happened to be there managed to trap her with a spell, and somehow that spell continued after that wizard died, so after her body died, her ghost persists to watch over the library and is bound to care for the books. So as such, we basically have everything you'd expect a silver dragon to have. The paralyzing breath, the cold breath, the frightful presence, all of that stuff. But then also add ghost abilities on top of that, right? That's going to give us all of these resistances, acid, fire, lightning, thunder, and then the immunities as well as the condition immunities. We have this bound to Candlekeep thing, which is what I was just telling you about. She regens 40 hit points at the start of her turn. She takes damage from a magic weapon or spell that stops. She's incorporeal and can move as such. She has legendary resistance 3 times a day. She also has X-ray vision, which is pretty crazy. And then she has her bite, which does force damage. And then she also has a necrotic breath weapon, something new because she's a ghost. 120-foot line, 10-foot wide, does 15d10 necrotic damage. She also has spells, Dancing Lights and Mage Hand at will. Detect magic, detect thoughts, dispel magic, and locate creature 3 times per day, and dispel evil and good and wall of force once a day, and then 3 legendary actions for either a bite attack or a 120-foot teleport. We also have a mimic chair here, which is pretty cool. So it's a mimic, standard mimic stuff, but in the form of a chair, and it has slightly different stat blocks. I believe this is basically the same, except that it specifically states that it can be a chair as opposed to it being a chest. We'll just confirm that though real quick. It has 30 hit points and its grapple escape DC is 10. So that's the differences between the mimic chair and your traditional mimic. All right, on to page 3. All right, Nintra Siotta. This is, again, a NPC. This is, well, we get right off the bat, Chaotic Evil Archfey. One thing I do wish is if you clicked on the short list, I wish it would tell you the page number so you didn't have to click into each one individually. So we'll check and see if this character is a separate stat block or not. It is. Okay, so this is interesting. So this one is a unique stat block contained in the book, but because the description here says that they're a Chaotic Evil Archfey, D&D Beyond went ahead and populated Chaotic Evil up here for us. All right, so we have some condition immunities. We are a Fey creature. We have legendary resistance. We have a claw attack. We have some pretty nasty looking claws here, so that makes sense. Sword of Shadow has a 120-foot range, does a d6 plus 7 necrotic damage, and you need a con save or be poisoned until the end of your next turn. We have some minor spell casting that we would associate with fairy creatures. And then we have a Storm of Shattered Glass, which recharges on a 6. Choose a point within 60 feet, create a 20-foot radius sphere of swirling glass shards. Each creature must make a dex save or take 8d6 slashing damage. And so it's basically like a fireball. And if she's in the sphere, she takes no damage. And she has 3 legendary actions for an attack, a 30-foot teleport, or a shadow strike. Whereas if she's in dim light, if she's in bright or dim light, she causes her shadow to attack a creature within 10 feet of her. The shadow makes 2 claw attacks, each identical to her claw attack, except it deals psychic damage instead of piercing damage. So that's interesting. For 2 legendary actions, she can make 2 attacks with her shadow, whereas she can normally, for 1 legendary action, make 1. So I guess it kind of evens out. Okay, moving on. We have a Parasite-Infested Behir. This has got to be later on. So this is page 220. So this is right towards the end of the book here. My guess is this is not a new stat block. The creatures, so yeah. Behir, when they roar, any creature swallowed by a Parasite-Infested Behir must make a DC 19 con save at the start of their turn, or be feasted upon by the blood parasites, taking 8d8 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half on a success. Targeting the Behir with magic that removes a disease, kills off its blood parasites. So that's this little bit down here. Where is it? 8d8. So normally Behirs can swallow you whole, but this little bit here is about how it has blood parasites that feast on you, which is just that much more terrifying, but I love that. Okay, Ram Sugar is a Dragonborn. Looks like he's just basically a cultist. I don't see anything super unique with him, but we'll just double check. Page 132. Nope. Oh, so he's going to have resistance to fire and his breath weapon because he's not a traditional cultist. And then we have the standard sage. We saw the grand or the master sage before. This is the regular sage, just a slightly lesser version of that. We have the Sapphire Sentinel, which is basically a upgraded sapphire-made stone golem. Which if we flip to that. It understands common but can't speak. It can open the sealed vault, and it remains a non-combatant unless it is directly attacked. Other than that, it looks to be the same. Oh, it mentions that it is indestructible until the glow. Oh, this has got the sapphire bit right here. This is useful. This is new. As an action, it can spend 1 charge to cast Dispel Magic at 9th level from the sapphire using its constitution as the casting modifier. This sapphire ceases to glow if all of its spells are expended, but it regains a D3 charges back daily at dawn, and glows again once it has 1 or more charges. Okay. That was the Sapphire Sentinel. We have Shemshine. This is a new character. This is an undead from Shemshine's nursery rhyme. Has a significant amount of resistances and immunities, as undeads typically do. If it is dropped to 0 hit points, it drops to 1 instead, unless the damage is the result of it being crushed by an object weighing at least 1,000 pounds, and it can move incorporeally. It has a Maddening Touch, which does 4d6 plus 3 psychic damage. It has Whispers of Violence. It chooses 2 creatures within 60 feet. They each make a Wisdom saving throw or take damage, psychic damage, and must use their reaction to make a weapon attack against 1 creature they can reach that it gets to choose. And it has Howling Babble, which recharges on a 6. 1 creature it can see within 30 feet must make a Wisdom save or take 48 psychic damage or be stunned until the end of its next turn. We have the Skitterwidget. This is the slightly more advanced version of what we saw with the Kiddywidget. Pretty much the same in a lot of the ways, although it's basically its bite, its hit points, I think its armor class, its bite and its tail do more damage, right? The bite does 2d6 plus 3 piercing with a higher escape DC, and we have 3d6 lightning damage on the tail. But they now need to make a con save or be stunned, and it has the reaction Good Parent. It imposes disadvantage on 1 attack roll made against a Kiddywidget it can see within 5 feet of it. We have Steel Crane, is another NPC from the Inner Alchemy. Very similar to what we saw before, right? Still has the 4 strike, significantly less damage, and a less chance for stun, although also has a whip as a weapon that can be used to grapple a target. It can make attacks with the whip while using it. Can't make attacks while using it to grapple. Anytime in his turn, he can release the creature grappled for no action. Has a self-heal, deflect missiles, and then also has slow descent. 3 times a day, can take no damage from a fall. We have a Storm Giant Skeleton. I'm not really going to go too much into this because it is essentially a Storm Giant just with the undead ability there, and doesn't even really have... I guess it has the vulnerabilities of a skeleton and giving it bludgeoning vulnerability, but I don't even see things like the fact that it has undead nature, where it doesn't need to eat, breathe, or sleep. It's not listed here. It might be just, say, use a giant skeleton. We're right here. So let's just flip to 208 and just confirm. Oh, it does actually have its own unique stat block. What do you know? I thought it was going to be just a reprint. But it is a fully unique stat block. I guess we see here that its Greatsword does necrotic damage as well. And then this Lightning Strike ability. Hurls magical lightning bolt out to 500 feet. Creatures within 10 feet must make a dex save or take 12d8 lightning damage. So that's interesting. I would have liked to have seen the standard, it doesn't need to eat, sleep, or breathe, but that's not in there. We have the swarm of animated books. We saw the chained ones. Now we have a swarm of them. Very similar in a lot of the same ways, although they have the best ability in my mind, which is their attack is called Book Club, which is amazing. Where it targets, it has to be in a creature space as it is a swarm, so it follows typical swarm rules. Does 2d4 plus 1 bludgeoning damage on a hit, or a d4 plus 1 if it has fewer than half hit points, like swarms typically do. We have Valin Sarnaster, who has lair effects, actually. Valin Sarnaster, page 182, is an undead. Let's see. Well, Valin Sarnaster is a mummy lord. But a lot of mummy lords. But has Clairvoyance, Dimension Door, and Scrying instead of Animate Dead, Guardian of Faith, and Insect Blade. While her heart remains in Alessia's body, her rejuvenation trait causes her to reform inside the sarcophagus in a location in the game or in the map there. And she can use her lair actions in any area of the tomb. And then we have her personality traits as well. Okay. That was Valin Sarnaster. Varnyr. This is page 63. I think we're looking at, he might be a sage from inside the book here. Varnyr is a noble, except speaks Common and Elven with dark vision as a Fey ancestry. Instead of a rapier, he wields a cane that can make 2 melee attacks, plus 3 to hit for a d4 bludgeoning damage. Getting to the end here. Now, the Wearravens, I'm told, are different than the Wearravens that were found in the original Curse of Strahd. From what I can tell, I don't happen to have a copy of it in hand, and I can't look at it on D&D Beyond because I hear they changed it. They added, if you notice, unlike your traditional lycanthropy creatures, which have immunity to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-silvered weapons, This Wearraven does not have that. But it does, however, have a regeneration, which is something we haven't seen on them before. They regain 10 hit points at the start of their turn. If they take damage from a silvered weapon or a spell, that trait doesn't function until the start of its next turn. It dies only if it starts its turn with 0 hit points and doesn't regen. So it's a spell, right? So a cantrip is technically a spell. So you know, that I think fits that. It doesn't say it has to be a spell using spell slots. It just says a spell. So I'm looking at here. It says, so the Monster Manual rules has the rules for Lycanthropy. The following text applies to Wearraven specifically. A character cursed with the Wearraven Lycanthropy gains a dexterity of 15 if their score isn't already higher. Attack and damage rolls for the Wearraven's beak are based on whichever is higher, the character's strength and or dex, or strength and dex. In Wearraven deals 1 piercing damage in its Raven form with no modifier, or a D4 plus the modifier in its hybrid form. That attack carries the Wearraven Lycanthropy. So it doesn't say, so if you read, so it doesn't actually suggest that you use, I'd have to reread the Lycanthropy section of the Monster Manual, but I thought, is this going to take me right to, oh, well, we can go look at it right here. How about we do that? We look at Wearraven, let's see. A non-lycanthrope humanoid bit by it. Character gains attacks clause. The character gains the lycanthrope's speeds in non-humanoid form, damage immunities, traits, and actions that don't involve equipment. So I think that means it gets... Does it get all of them? Doesn't get any damage immunities because it doesn't have any. And it says it gets traits and actions that don't involve equipment. So I guess that means it gets mimicry and regen, if I'm reading that correctly. So that's something that's interesting and very unique to this, where you can basically get yourself a character that's going to get 10 HP regen at the start of the turn. And what I'll say is, you might think, well, that's kind of useless in combat. I mean, it has its uses, don't get me wrong, but spells, you know, if you fight spellcasters a lot, that's going to be useless. But think about this outside of combat. You will almost never need to short rest if you can get out of combat, where every 6 seconds you can get 10 hit points back. Plus, you have this super cool mimicry ability, which I think is pretty awesome. All right, let's move to our last page here. We have a Wood Elf Wizard, which I believe this is probably just going to have adding the elf abilities to, like, a mage character. This is, yeah, I think this is it right here. Back are the 4 Wood Elf Wizards. Use the Drow Mage stat block, but omit sunlight sensitivity. All right, so that's the Wood Elf Wizard. And then we have Zekran from Zekran's Zephyrus Tome, which is a Water Genasi. I think this is a unique stat block here. But we can, you know what the hell? We'll just double check, because we've been doing that so far, so why should we stop now? Yeah, 145. No, not a unique stat block. Interesting. He is an Archmage with the following changes. He speaks Aquan, Common, Primordial, Sahuagin, and Undercommon. He has 144 hit points, resistance to acid damage, a swim speed of 30 feet, and the ability to breathe water and air. He has prepared the Conjure Elemental spell in addition to his other spells, and while in the basement, he gains a special action option, Elemental Cannon, which we can see down here. On initiative count 20, losing initiative ties, he uses a handheld device to fire a cannon at one creature he can see. Provided they're in the basement or on the staircase, they must make a DC 17 dex save or take 7d6 cold damage on a fail or half on success. The basement furnishings provide half cover. Again, is a large object with 16 AC, 80 hit points, and immunity to poison and psychic damage. It's mounted atop a swivel and bolted to the dais. The cannon draws power from the crystal in the middle of the room. This crystal sparks with elemental power whenever the cannon is about to fire. If the crystal is destroyed, both Zekran's handheld device and the cannon become powerless. The crystal is a large object with AC 13, 40 hit points, and immunity to poison and psychic damage. And our last creature here is... Oh boy, that's a good one, huh? This looks like maybe just a lich. Oh no, it's a Draco Lich. Zikzakrishka? Gonna guess? 209. I think it's just a blue Draco Lich, but let's find out. There might be some unique abilities here. Da, 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 da. Let's see. I don't see anything unique on initiative count 20. Her lair actions might be unique, actually. I think everything up here is standard. Yeah, initiative count 20, she can use these areas if she's in V3 on the map. Part of the ceiling collapses above one creature she can see. They must make a dex save or take 66 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone, be buried under the rubble. While buried, they're restrained and unable to stand up. They can use an action to pull themselves out, or another creature can help them with a DC 10 athletics check. A cloud of sand swirls in a 20-foot radius centered on a point she chooses within 60 feet. The clouds spread around corners. Each creature in the cloud must succeed on a DC 15 con save or be blinded for a minute. A creature can repeat the saving throughout the end of each of their turns, ending the effect on a success, or chooses 2 points that it can see, each of which must be on a solid surface, and creates a 5-foot wide line of lightning between them. The 2 points must be within 60 feet and 60 feet of each other. Each creature in the line must make a DC 15 dex save or take 3d6 lightning damage. And that is the last new monster/NPC from Candlekeep Mysteries. I warned you that it would be a long one. If we split the NPCs and the monsters out, we probably could have cut this into about 2 20-minute videos, but instead, we went with one 40-minute video. So again, I think I still stand by what I said as I was going through, that Miirym, the undead ghost dragon, is probably my favorite NPC inside here. I like the Lichen Lich as well, just for the variability. I'd love to see what a Bard Lich would be like, just because it's different. And then again, I really like the Wearraven. I might add Wearravens, might become a larger part of my homebrew world just because those abilities are so cool. But don't let me change your opinion. Let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite monster from Candlekeep Mysteries? Which one are you most excited about? Were there ones you were hoping to see? From what I saw from live streams I did going through the book, there were a lot of people hoping for more information on classic Candlekeep characters that they remember from the Baldur's Gate games and things like that. And they don't seem to be in here, and that seemed to bum out a lot of people. Again, that's just what I saw in comments and things in chat during live stream. So giveaway still going on, links in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.